And here we go. Okay, I've had a few problems with this recording. I've been trying to record this for you today. Talk through some of the latest stuff that I've had to plug in. What I've got going at the moment. Okay, just make sure it's working. Right. So the last video we talked about the client and server model that's based on a tag lib called client-connect-chat. There's been some changes. There's receivers, which is now an array list, and you can send it to multiple users. Strict mode works. If you set this to true, then only users that are part of this receivers group can send actions back that match these. The initial message as a client, this is the client, needs to match the initial action of the action map of the server. Front end user is it's a new feature, and it exists in both this and the new tag lib, and it allows the front end user to, or basically what it does is it creates another session to the chat room as this user underscore front end user. Master nodes, this is not the master node, this is the client. If it was the master node, you set this to true. This doesn't get used at the moment. Div ID action map we've gone through in the previous video. Server, same thing, it connects to the client user. There's a user called CC, which is our default user that we've logged into that chat room as well. Has a front end user and is the master node. Initial message gets ignored. There is another tag lib, so if I talk through the tag libs and go through what changes you potentially need to do, then I'll do the demo quickly as well. So the event page is a new tag lib, event user, send type. If you don't define this, it gets sent as a message. Otherwise, if you send it as an event, then you need these additional tag libs or calls within the tag lib. Event of what it is, message, context, JSON data. In this example, we have a test controller which generates from JSON build on a JSON object, and that's what we're passing through here. And the receivers as a tag, as an array list that gets processed. And this matches the second user. Second user, both have front end users by the way. So event again to an event. In this case, we have a command flip-flop arguments of hey, why do you want flip-flops? So that's the user in reverse. So what you need to do now from here is, once you've defined all this in your application, things that you need to be aware of is that if you define a front end user, then it will use or add additional GSP to your page and use WebSockets to connect as a front end user. If you don't define this, then it doesn't do that bit, and that gets called within these tag libs. So what actually happens is you have the thing that you really need to, should I say, focus your attention on within the plugin if you are going to use these client services within the plugin, is this service folder called wschat.client. Listener service is related to this method, and it calls a backend listener service called chat client endpoints. Override service is for you if within the listener service you wish to look up your users. So let's say in your event these aren't real IDs, these are IDs, then you can override this override service. And to understand how you do this, refer to process service and sort of redo for what you're doing here for the override service to override it. It's fairly simple. So if you needed to look up something and return it, then you would. The client service is related to the older method, this endpoint. The difference between the two, this one's actually more basic. The message handling of this is done through a service, whereas on this one it's done through a messaging handler. It was the original method I came across and I've used it, and the difference between the main two is that when you make calls to this through the tag lib, you're instantiating the class, whereas with this you're reusing the session and you're not instantiating the class, so it works totally different ways. So this uses this method. This is for you, this class here. If you want to override what you do in your events, your clients pages, your actions on your backend for this and for event pages, then this is the file that you need to override. I have explained at the very top in the source code what you need to do to override it. The first action within this service is related to listener service, which is related to the newer method of the endpoint, and it passes through the object that's coming back, and this is related to if it's an event. So the first bit here is all related to events, and it's passing through our events. If it's doesn't end with that, it appends it with that in our example case, because this could be anything you want it to be that you're sending back, and we're sending back the same object but we've received the end of it to the person that's sending it to us. This bit of this code is related to if it's normal standard messages like a map or just a text message. If the action is close connection, it closes. If it's close my connection, it sends it back to the user's close connection. If it's do something, it says it's done something. Otherwise, any other action, so if it's not an event and if it's not one of these, it will just disconnect. And I've had to do this, otherwise it will just go into a forever loop basically of sending messages. And you can play around with this if you override a service and do what you want. This bit here is related to the older method, and I've extracted it to here so that it's out of the way for you to control. And it's more related to actually just a map of commands coming in, which we saw in the client server. You know, do this, do that. So in here, when you've overridden the whole class and then done an override on this, you can then set to do whatever on your backend. Because at the moment, if you have save clients, which is still for front end, this config set is true, it will collect this, put it into a hash map on this interface, and then on your front end you can use a JavaScript to pass through the list, which is another controller within the plugin. Yeah, so that's the really older method of doing things, the way of doing things. It was the original way of doing things. From there we've moved on. These are now related to more of the front end user, so that it waits, make sure the front end user's online before triggering the messages to the master. So when the slave comes on, it ensures that the slave front end is on before it sends messages to the master, so the master messages can get through to both front and back end of your slave, because your server will be running anyway. So anyway, that's that. There is one more file. So in our tag lib, that's something quite fancy. In the client connect, if you have a template set in your tag lib, so in here if you said template equals path to it, if you had it in both this or the new method, then in our tag lib it will override the default template in the plugin, which we're going to go through in a minute. And in here as well, it does the same thing. Right. So the template file, I've got it. So you need to copy this from the source wschat file, the process, and put it into your own project, into a specific folder, and then override it as I've just shown you from the tag lib pool. We've got two example IDs, div IDs at the top of our template. We've got a JavaScript now. The JavaScript connects through to the chat room. When it connects through, processing messages as the front end user now. One of the things it does is if the backend, so it's checking for the backend user, if it's not logged in, it will disconnect the front end, and you'll see that in a minute as well. Private messages, this is an important section. It works out if it's an JSON object or not. If it's a JSON object, it sends it to event action. If it's not, it's a map action like our server client model. Otherwise it's like our event page model. So when you've overridden this page, you can then change all this. So for our process map action, what we've got, and you'll see it working, is we've got doing task 1 for this broken video, and you know this will be what we've set it to be for this demo. So task 1 is up here, div ID. I'll point to it with my finger, by the way. I just realised. Yeah. We're saying if we get this value in, change that, and you know we get all these different values, and for each one you could do different things on your front end, call different things on your back end to do things on your front end if needed. So that's our process map action, and it's for you. It's not for me. I don't know what you want to do. Event action, again, same thing, and I'll show you. Breaks up that object that you'll see in a minute, the event that we are creating. Where was it? This event here. So it's breaking this up, and I'm going to take out some of these logs before I publish this one, and it's going to be a snapshot because I think it's going to have problems, to be honest. This is where it's checking if it's a received message. This is a received message. Ends with received. If you recall what we did with the process service, is we added received to it. So we're now looking for that in our process page. We're saying if it's got that, then don't send the message back, basically. So if it's got that, don't send the message back. Otherwise, sorry, don't process the command, because it's that what's been sent and it's been received back, and we don't want to process that. But this is in our logic. In your logic, it could be anything. So process commands now bars us through that JSON commands object, and we're looking for flip-flop. If you remember, in our event page 2, we're sending the command the flip-flop, and arguments have, hey, why do you want flip-flops? And which we add on a rainy day. Yeah, why would you want that on a rainy day? Right, anyway, so back to our process page. So if the case is flip-flop, then change flip-flop's ID to the values, which is here, and it should be nice and big. Right, here we go. We're connected as a client, and we've disabled it from sending messages because I thought there was a bug related to that. It's in our config.groovy. I've disabled it. Yeah. So first test we're going to do. Oh, we got a flip-flop. This is the previous method anyway. So we're going to connect as a server. And what we'll get is we'll get a message from server, because if you remember, CC was in the map. Server is in, and its front end user is in. So in here, in the source code of the server, we will find a connection in our process page that we've seen. Yeah. So if we go to our clients, watch here now, watch here, watch here, watch here. It's got all of this for this broken video, right? And over here, we've got all of the actions back, and we could be doing things for the reverse in our front end process page, or we could be doing things in our backend WS process class, the nice friendly class. So, and to So what happened is that it asked for it to close my connection, and it sent back closed connection, and so the client user's gone. If we kick the master user, the backend user is also gone. So if we now do event page, I think there is, I will fix this problem before, so there's nothing here, nothing here. There is a slight bug in the JavaScript that I need to fix before I release it. And we've got our message back, we've got our event down here. This is our debug, that's our event page. That's our chat room, that's what we've seen here. If we kick event user, in fact, if we send anything that it doesn't recognize to event user or event user 2, they will disconnect. There you go, because that was what our plan was, wasn't it, if you remember? So there you go. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's some bugs. Yeah, there are bugs. Lots of bugs. Lots of friendly bugs. Okay, I think that's it. That wraps it up. If there's any questions or if there's any problems, contact me through the plugin page. Thank you.